Hello, my name is Nina Peckman, and I'm the staff education attorney at ACNJ. Today, I'm going to be describing high school transition rights for students in special education and some additional rights related to the impact of the pandemic. ACNJ's work over 40 years as an independent nonprofit organization has resulted in better laws and policies, more effective funding, and stronger services for children and families, giving more children a chance to grow up safe, healthy, and educated. We work closely with state and federal lawmakers and policymakers to bolster their understanding and response to the needs of children and families. The Kid Law Resource Center provides information and assistance to parents and those working with families about laws and legal processes affecting children, including education and child welfare issues. You can learn more at www.acnj.org. This presentation is intended for informational purposes only. It does not constitute legal advice. For assistance with a particular education issue, you can contact me, Nina Peckman, at ACNJ. This project is co-sponsored by the New Jersey State Bar Foundation and made possible through funding from the IOTA Fund of the Bar of New Jersey. For additional information about the Foundation's other law-related activities, please call 1-800-FREE-LAW or visit the Foundation at njsbf.org. Students with IEPs are entitled to transition services to prepare them for life after high school. These services are school-based services to prepare students for their goals after high school. They are individualized, which means they must be based on the student's abilities, strengths, weaknesses, and preferences. And they are appropriate and may be necessary for academics, vocational, training, and life skills. Some examples for students beginning at age 14 or 8th grade, whichever comes first, the IEP team will plan which transition services are appropriate for the student. These transition services must be included in the student's IEP and are to be put into place when the student turns 16. As appropriate, students should begin to participate in the transition part of the IEP meetings to state their preferences. Some examples of transition services are instruction tailored to the student's goals, annual interest, skills, and vocational assessments, training in vocational or career skills, giving the student experiences in their community to prepare them for adult life, such as day trips to the local library, supermarket, museums, local sporting events, etc. Executive functioning skills, and instruction that prepares students for vocational training, college, or to function independently as possible with life skills, including self-advocacy skills and learning skills with fading supports as appropriate. Examples of ways that a student's high school transition programs must be linked to the student's post-high school goals and abilities include executive functioning skill development and supports as necessary for students with weaknesses in such cognitive processes such as planning, time management, switching tasks, remembering details, paying attention, working memory, inhibition and self-monitoring behavior, multitasking, and initiating work. For students who are planning to attend a four-year college or a two-year college or community school, required pre-college classes including necessary supports such as an aid and accommodations and accelerated AP classes, world language, college test prep, etc. For students who plan to enter the workforce or vocational training program after high school, instructions such as computer skills, technology, necessary life skills, financial literacy and related services to address needs, including pragmatic communication skills and behaviors. And for students with developmental disabilities whose goals include independent living, skills could include specific life skills as appropriate, such as hygiene, household chores, public transportation, computer and phone skills, appropriate work skills, and safety skills. For students who will need assistance from state agencies after high school graduation, representatives of these agencies may be invited to transition meetings. Most services are available once a student turns 21, but services are also available before then, and parents can ask their child study team for information about how and when to access these services. Parents of students with developmental disabilities who may require the services of the New Jersey Division of Developmental Disabilities, or DDD, should be provided with information and assistance with how to apply and obtain these services. As the application process takes time, and as there are wait lists for certain services, this application process should be started no later than 1 year prior to the student's 21st birthday. Students who already applied for and were deemed eligible for DDD services before they turned 18 must reapply through DDD directly after their 18th birthday, but the application process is much simpler at that time. Students who apply for these services for the first time when they are 18 years or older must apply directly to DDD. If they are deemed eligible, they will receive these services through the New Jersey Department of Children and Families until age 21. Once the student turns 21, their services will then be administered through DDD. There are many services available through DDD, such as respite, summer camp, adult day programs, and other community-based support services. Residential programs are also available, but there can be very long wait lists for residential programs. Services are also available through the Department of Labor, Division of Rehabilitation Services for assistance related to vocational training and employment for children with disabilities. And services are available through the Department of Children and Families, the Children's System of Care for children with developmental delays and behavior difficulties. The IEP must contain a written transition plan, which must describe goals for the services that are provided. Each goal needs to be specific and define how mastery of those skills would be assessed in a detailed and objectively measurable way. For example, goals may state, as relevant to each student and tailored again to the student's individual needs, by the end of the school year, student will have written a resume, developed interview and phone skills, conducted a job search, and participated in 3 job interviews. Or a goal might state, the student will master the math skills relevant to money necessary to pay for and receive the correct change with 100% accuracy. Regarding executive functioning, a goal might include, given support and visual cues, the student will create a system for organizing personal items in locker, desk, notebook with 80% accuracy. Or using learned strategies with fading support, the student will draft organized outlines for writing assignments. And for life skill goals, these might include, student will independently identify what is a nutritious meal and prepare it and be able to identify and follow all appropriate safety and hygiene skills in the preparation of the meal. Again, these are examples. Prior to graduating high school in the state of New Jersey, each student must meet certain minimum graduation requirements. The requirements are regulated by the state and are the same for all students, including those receiving special education. The minimum graduation requirements are 120 credits and consist of 20 credits in English or language arts, 15 credits each in mathematics, science, social studies, and health, safety, and physical education, 2.5 credits in financial, economic, business, and entrepreneurial business literacy, and 5 credits each in visual and performing arts, world languages, and 21st century life and careers. In certain cases, credit requirements may be waived or modified. For example, world languages may be waived if a student has a severe learning disability, as reflected in the student's IEP, or an accommodation could be provided that replaces learning the language with learning about the country's culture. Another example is if a student's disability interferes with the student's ability to complete the physical education requirement, adaptive or alternative physical education are appropriate consistent with the student's IEP. In addition, each district must offer a variety of ways for students to complete their required credits, which includes allowing for students to work for a half of the day, exemptions to attendance requirements, making up credits outside of normal school hours, independent studies, and credits through assessments and at community colleges. Prior to high school graduation, the child study team should provide the student with a summary of achievement and functional performance, and recommendations to assist the student with meeting post-secondary goals. Students should also be advised that special education rights cease upon high school graduation. After high school, their disability education rights in college and graduate school are governed by Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act and the American with Disabilities Act. Disability rights under these laws also apply to the workplace. In college, schools are only obligated to comply with the American with Disabilities Act, which primarily governs access issues such as physical barriers to learning. And schools must also comply with Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act, which permits reasonable accommodations and supports as long as the fundamental nature of the program is not changed. Because the accommodations are fewer in college, and because students are responsible to advocate for themselves and inform college staff of their needs, and finally, because parents will typically have much less oversight, it can be a very good idea to start preparing a child as appropriate in their teen years to begin to advocate for themselves. For more information regarding disability rights in higher education, please see the link in the resource page included in this presentation. Students in special education also have certain graduation rights, which include participating in graduation ceremonies and end-of-year extracurricular activities, even if they will continue in high school beyond 12th grade. For example, students can walk in the graduation ceremony, but then receive the diploma at a future date once they have completed their education and are ready to graduate. The right to enrollment in school through age 21 is also based upon whether a student has met the transition goals and not just on passing grades in all the required classes. Students also have the right to achieve proficiency in the statewide assessments unless their IEP establishes alternative requirements. Certain students with disabilities are eligible to demonstrate proficiency through a process known as the portfolio appeals process instead of through the statewide assessments. Parents should ask the child study team case manager for more information. Parents are also entitled to an official graduation notice that explains the right to file for mediation or due process to stop the graduation from taking place if the parents disagree. Parents should receive notice of graduation at their student's annual IEP when they are a senior, if the student is a senior in high school, or older if the student has continued in school beyond 12th grade, and graduation was not brought up at the annual review, or if there has been no annual review scheduled to discuss graduation, parents should request a meeting for this purpose before May of the year when the school district brings up graduation. Parents should file a due process petition to prevent their child from graduating when they disagree with their district, either 15 days from the receipt of a written graduation notice or prior to the graduation event, unless the parent has received an IEP or written acknowledgement stating that the student will continue in the next school year. Also, if the school sends a diploma home or provides it to the parent or student, the parent should immediately return the diploma with a letter stating they believe that their child requires another year of special education services and do not agree with the child study team that the child is ready to graduate and that the parent intends to file for due process and possibly emergent relief. The due process petition is the name of the complaint in education disputes. The petition is filed with the New Jersey Department of Education Office of Special Education Programs. In the case where the district mails or gives to the parent or student the diploma or notifies the parent of a change in placement or makes decisions regarding the student's participation in graduation ceremonies that the parents disagree with, the parent must file a due process petition and file simultaneously a request for emergent relief also with the Office of Special Education Programs. A link to the due process petition and emergent relief forms with instructions is included in the resource page of this presentation. The filing for due process results in an automatic stop. that prevents a district's proposed change to the IEP or decision from going into effect. This automatic stop is known as stay put and means that the student must remain in the current placement and or continue to receive the current IEP services and or prevents the school from following through on the decision until the due process case is decided by an administrative law judge or resolved by agreement of the parties. When emergent relief is requested, within a few days, a judge will consider the request and make an immediate decision regarding the emergent issue, such as whether the student should graduate. The judge's decision in the emergent relief will remain in effect until the whole due process case is resolved. Parents retain the right to all school records, school notices, notice of meetings, and of graduation notices, even after the student turns 18. However, parents no longer have the right to make education decisions or file for due process without the student's written permission. The case manager must inform the parent about the transfer of rights 3 years before the student's 18th birthday. If the student agrees that the parent retains the ability to make decisions, the student can send a written notice, such as a letter, to the child study team, superintendent, and school principal. This letter can simply state, "I give my parents the authority to make all education decisions, sign consents on my behalf, and to attend IEP and other school meetings on my behalf." When parents believe the adult student will not be able to make decisions on their own behalf or will need assistance with decisions regarding some areas as a result of their disability, parents may consider seeking a guardianship, limited guardianship, or obtain a power of attorney or obtain other alternative forms of authority for decision-making. Guardianships and limited guardianships are formal proceedings involving a complaint that is filed in the county surrogate's office where the parent resides and requires a court order. Forms can be obtained through your county surrogate office. It is advisable to consult with an attorney about this process as it is very complicated. For students with severe developmental delays or those who clearly cannot make adult decisions, guardianship may be the only practical alternative. To ensure a smooth transition to this phase of a child's life, the guardianship papers must be filed at least 6 months prior to the 18th birthday. However, guardianships and other decision-making arrangements can be pursued at any time after the student becomes an adult. Links to additional information can be found on the resource page of this presentation. It has been widely documented and reported that the pandemic-related school closures in March 2020 resulted in learning loss, regression of skills in academics and behaviors for many students, particularly students with disabilities, students of color, immigrants, those from urban areas, and those from poor and low-income families. Students who went through the pandemic in middle and high school may not have received the transition planning services and or adequate community, college prep, and vocational experiences that is so critical for them to achieve their post-high school goals. Under the federal and state special education laws, continuation of high school beyond 12th grade up through the age 21 is sometimes mandated for a student to simply receive the education they require. However, additional years of schooling beyond age 18 and 12th grade can also be appropriate for students whose IEPs were not appropriately developed or implemented, such as when the student did not receive appropriate instruction they required and or when their transition rights were violated. In these cases, the additional years of services are a compensatory education remedy. Compensatory education services are meant to make up for services a student should have received but did not receive from their school district and may be required, for example, to provide students with additional services before high school graduation, for students who have already graduated, for vocational and college classes, and can possibly include a creation of a fund of money for future services. These are, again, examples of compensatory education services. For more information about compensatory education, please see the resource page. When concerns about violations for of students' education rights and potential compensatory education services cannot be resolved informally, parents typically have 2 years from the date they knew or should have known of the violation to file a due process complaint for compensatory education. However, on March 3, 2022, a law S905 was passed in New Jersey that extends the time that parents have to file a complaint for compensatory education issues up to September 1, 2023, if the claims are related to education violations that occurred between March 18, 2020 to September 1, 2021. This law also requires all school districts to conduct IEP meetings with parents no later than December 31, 2022, and earlier upon the parent's request to discuss the need for compensatory education services at an IEP meeting. In addition, in June of 2021, in response to the COVID-19 pandemic, New Jersey passed a law known as S3434, which details the compensatory education rights granted to students in special education, including transition services. Pursuant to this law, a Board of Education can continue to provide services in an IEP to a student who turns 21 if the parent or guardian of the student, along with the IEP team, determine that the student needs additional or compensatory special education or related services. So for students who turned 21 in the 2021-2022 school year, this could mean additional services up to June 30, 2022. For students who will turn 21 in the 2022-2023 school year, it could mean possible attendance at school up to June 30, 2023. And for students who will turn 21 in the 2023-2024 school year, this could mean attending school possibly up to June 30, 2024. And you can see links to these laws on the resource page. And here is the resource page with resources I've mentioned, and I hope that you find these helpful. And I'd like to thank you for listening to this presentation today. For more information or for advocacy assistance, you can also contact me, Nina Peckman, at npeckman@acnj.org or at 973-643-3876, extension 226.